So let's say that for a moment, you need proof. You need to know that it's worth your money to buy the remastery of frickin' Mass Effect. Well, just look at IGN. I feel like the game just came out. Mass Effect, complete walkthrough, tips, romance guides, more. Every important choice, consequence, Mass Effect romance options, Max Paragon, and then above it, a little higher, there was an article about like favorite parts. Here it is, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, changes, fans love. Like, holy shit. It's definitely worth it though. So look, the game is fucking fantastic. That's no joke whatsoever. The game is just fucking fantastic, alright? This brings me to... This whole game coming out in general brings me to something that I need to discuss. Like what just happened there, that was crazy. Remasters. Video game remasters. Are they worth it? I mean, is it legitimately worth the idea that this game looks a little bit better? That this game might play the littlest bit better? I mean, is it? Well, I'm the kind of person that for a very long time was against this kind of stuff. Very much against this kind of stuff. For the longest time, forever in fact, I was the kind of person that would straight up tell you that it was not worth your money to buy a game just because it looked better. That there were other ways, other things, other stuff you could check out. Guys, the crazy thing about these games, the crazy thing that keeps us buying them over and over and over again, is that we develop into a spot of comfort. I mean, you know what? Looking at this game alone, it's flashy, it's absolutely beautiful, it's shocking even in some parts. And I'm not very far. I only got to turn the game on like once. I played it for about 5 hours, and this is where I am. I got my ship, I did a couple of missions, I got a couple of crew members here and there. And you know what? I think the thing that blows me away about this game, and not just this game, but other games as well, is that these are the kinds of games that make me realize that maybe remasteries are worth it. Maybe seeing this game looking just a little bit better. Maybe actually seeing what they hoped this game would be day one is worth it. I mean, look at that. You know, this looks so good you could sit down here and you could just stare at this. And keep in mind, all that I'm showing you is the 1080p, the top resolution of 1080p. This is as good as the game looks in that resolution. We're not even getting in to the top tier, the really good looking stuff. And that brings us to our talking point today. Because I want to talk about remasters and how I've been against them and how my attitude has surely changed. My attitude has changed immensely over the years. A couple of years back, I had a big episode on the gaming podcast, and it was a pretty big episode where we argued about something that I tended to think was a fairly big deal. And that was the fact that they were remaking Tomb Raider already. Not when they first remade Tomb Raider, but when they did Tomb Raider, and then they remastered Tomb Raider for barely a generation up. And I say barely a generation up because it came out on the PlayStation 4, Xbox 360 era, And then the next thing I knew, it didn't even feel like a year had gone by and we had a remaster for the next-gen system. And there were people that were defending it with the dumbest of reasons. Like, did you know that they coded an entire engine just to run her hair? Like I give a shit. Like I give a shit. And I argued that the reason this made no sense to me was because if you're the kind of person that honestly wants to jump into the next gen and see everything there is to offer and go to the next level and be a part of the next big thing and get into the new games, because I said, why would you buy this? And they were like, to see how good it can be. And I'm like, well, it can never be as good as some of the games that you can literally get on the current graphics, the current stuff that's out right now. Well, I was right. I was right. I am right. If you take a PlayStation 2 game and you remaster it, but if you're not like remaking it, because there's a difference here. When they remaster something like Halo, and it's literally running on top of the original engine and you could just push the button and switch back to the original game, or like when they take what they're doing with Diablo 2, that's a remaster. It's basically going to run on top of the original game. When they remaster things, when they smooth graphics out, and as far as I'm concerned, if you are altering the way that the game originally looked, you are remastering it. Period. There's no argument to be had after that point. If you alter the way the game originally looked, if you scale it in any way, it is a remaster. If it plays the exact same, but looks any different, it's a remaster. It's been changed. Especially if you're bringing it up in graphic quality. Even that awful Final Fantasy VII port, and you know the one I'm talking about, when they brought it to PC and they said, it's a remaster, Final Fantasy VII for the computer. And I was like, get the fuck. Roll the footage from 1997. Get the fuck out of here. You know, I was against this kind of stuff. Very much against this kind of stuff, especially when it came with a heavy cash grab. But you know, that has altered for me lately. I look at games like Onimusha that they redid for HD. Not Genma Onimusha, but the next step that they took when they remastered it recently. Not too recently, but recently for HD. You know, I bought that game. And I played the shit out of that game. Absolutely loved that game. I recently bought the Blizzard collection, specifically for one game that was remastered. And yes, it's a remastery. They added tracks that never existed. They added actual musical tracks to the game that didn't exist before. And they added all kinds of different things like a multiplayer and whatnot. It's basically a reimagining, remastery of the game. Rock and Roll Racing is what I bought that for. And I'm still playing it. I'm still playing it because it's so good. I love Rock and Roll Racing. You know, I went back and I played Tomb Raider not way too long ago on the PC. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I was amazed at how good it looked for the time that I knew it originally came out. And you know, that's not all. Because when I think about it, there are other games that fit this exactly. I just bought Mass Effect, and I'm really enjoying it. And the more I do this, the more I realize that my attitude has definitely changed towards these remasteries. And I think the reason is this. It's nice to play a bunch of new games, right? It is. It's exciting to play a bunch of new games. But you know something that we tend to overlook? Our favorite games. Those comfort games. Playing Onimusha Warlords. I love to play that game. It was the game that made the PlayStation 2 real for me. You know, I love Rock and Roll Racing. And to sit down with one of my friends and play Rock and Roll Racing, or 2 or 3 of my friends and play Rock and Roll Racing today as if it was all the way back in my childhood, is immensely enjoyable. To replay Tomb Raider and see just a little more of that game and appreciate it just a little bit more than I used to. I've already beat the game. Technically, there's no real reason to go back to it. I've beat it. It's done. But there's something about going back to old games. Final Fantasy VI, that remastery. There was something about going back and playing Final Fantasy VI again and seeing it the same game that I'd already played. Mostly. With a couple of tweaks here and there. Some of the tweaks I truly enjoyed. Some of the tweaks I was not a huge fan of. But the remastery, to play that game again with just ever so slight the change that it made the game fresh again and brought me all the way back, that's a comfort game. And you know what? I think that these kind of games are overlooked. It is easy to get caught up in the idea that there's AAA titles coming out all the time. There's great new games on the horizon. Come get your new games. But you know what? There are games that we just like to play. I like to play Pokemon, and it excites me sometimes when they remake Gold and Silver, when they remake Red and Blue, Fire Red and Leaf Green. I truly enjoyed those remasters. I enjoyed the remaster. Honestly, I enjoyed the Go game. I did. I enjoyed Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. Do I like it as much as Fire Red, Leaf Green? No, definitely not. But I did like it. I liked to see it in a new light. I liked to see things in a new perspective that I didn't get to see before. Now that basically, those games, that game is a remake, okay? But it still harbors the same idea that sometimes it's nice that if I would like to play Final Fantasy VII, sometimes I'd like it just to look a little bit better. Maybe not by much. Maybe not to the point where it was the complete remake idea that we just got. Maybe I just want the same game. That comfort game. That game I've already beat 100 times that I'd love to beat just one more time. And if you want to add a couple of things to it, that's fine. Just don't change the spirit of the game at large, because that's when it hits remake territory. Remasteries, to me, in my own headcanon definition, basically comes down to when the game is basically the same game you remember playing, but it's a little bit better. Looks a little bit better. It hits the eyes a little bit better. It makes you see things and realize things that you might not have realized before about certain characters, certain areas, certain things. And it brings back that emotion. Back to when you very first put the game in and seen it for the first time and experienced these things for the first time. And maybe by playing a game that's slightly remastered and you stop and you think to yourself, you know, I'm kind of curious what so-and-so is going to look like. I can't wait to see it. That reinvigorates these comfort games for us in a way that I find is important. Now, especially that I'm getting older. I'm in my late 30s, 37 years old. I never thought that I would be sitting here talking video games at 37 years old, but I am, because it's a big part of my life. It never died for me. And part of it is because I hung on to certain games that were comfort games, and now I'm seeing these games come back out in a way that makes me excited. I like the fact that they're remaking some of these PlayStation 2 games that I grew up on that I truly miss. I played that Final Fantasy X remastery and I loved it. I loved it so much that I bought it for the PlayStation 3 and I beat it. I bought it for the PlayStation 4 and I beat it. I bought it for the Switch and I'm currently just about to turn it on and play through it again so I can beat it again. And quite frankly, I wouldn't put it past myself that if it goes on sale for under $10, I'll buy it on the PC again and play it again. And you know what? I used to get mad about this and talk about how we're proving to the industry that we will double dip and they will just continue to charge us for the same shit over and over and over and over and over. And you know, I remember how mad that used to make me, and I look back on it and I don't see it the same way anymore. Sometimes I need my comfort game. I'm 37 years old and some of the new games I just don't care for, or I just can't play. It is nice when they remake Resident Evil 3. I enjoyed it. It was nice when they remade Resident Evil 2, but it's also very awesome when they remaster Resident Evil 4 and give me a chance to go back through a game that I absolutely love basically the same way, but seeing those details just a little better, bringing it up to a newer era of graphical achievement that makes me appreciate it just a little bit more and run through it one more time. And I can do it, and I don't have to worry about too much. Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3. I'm in the process of beating the Dragon Quest legacy again, and I'm doing it through the remakes because I played them on Nintendo. Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Warrior 1 I played on Nintendo, Warrior 2 on Nintendo as well, and then I believe I emulated Part 3. I'll be honest about that. My attitude has changed here quite seriously. And I think as long as they're not charging us huge money for these things, I personally don't mind double dipping. I'll give them another $10 or $20 for a remaster of a game that I know well and love well. And I don't have to take a chance that I might hate that game. Because the older you get, for me personally, the more the responsibility packs on and the less money you have to spend. And it's nice to know that sometimes they offer me a simple remastery. This game is what you know, it's what you love, it plays a little better. We added these quality of life features, which you might like and you might not like, it's up to you. And then we made it look a lot better. Those graphical little details that you couldn't quite see, that didn't quite pop out the same way, now they will. Like this Diablo 2 that's coming around the corner. I cannot wait to play that game again in a newer graphical style that will not, how do I put this, that will draw me into the game as if it was the first time I was seeing these things for the first time again. I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait for that game to come out and to make an Amazon, because that's what I'm doing. That's the first one that comes to mind, because over the years my fighting styles have very much changed in terms of MMOs or RPGs in general, and I've seemed to have for some reason fallen into archery characters. I don't know why. That was never my playstyle before, but it seems to be happening and I seem to be enjoying it, and that makes me very interested to make one of those characters. My attitude has definitely changed here. Quite a bit. This video is dragging out a little bit, so I'm going to stop my train of thought right there. And I hope you came along with me for that little talk and understand a little bit of what I'm trying to say is maybe remasters are worth every penny.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.